Logan Sargent. He got into F1 by the skin of his teeth, and he's retained his seat by the skin of his teeth. Am I being a bit harsh, or is this just the harsh reality? Well, let's rewind the clocks and look back at his junior career. Some would say he was alright at karting, winning the 2009 Rotax Grand Nationals, the 2009 Florida Winter Tour, the 2011 SCUSA Super Nationals, the 2011 South Florida RMAX Challenge, the 2011 ROK Cup International, the 2012 Forfeo della Industria.
Yeah, I butchered that, but we move on.
2014 SCUSA Super Nationals, the 2015 WSK Night Edition, the 2015 WSK Championship Cup, the 2015 CIK FIA Formula FK Junior Championship, and the 2015 WSK Championship Cup.
Finally, Logan, keep it on the lowdown. I don't want to go through a massive list again.
So some would argue that he was alright at karting after moving to Europe at age 12, just so he can drive against the best drivers and maybe even one day have a fair shot at F1. But there's still a long way to go, so in 2017 he jumped in the Formula 4 Championship of the United Arab Emirates. But things didn't go to plan. He was slaughtered by his teammate Jonathan Aberdeen, but surely this was all just practice until he got into British Formula 4.
Right?
He was now racing with Carlin, partnered up with Jamie Caroline, who, unfortunately for Sargent, won the title that year. But it wasn't as bad as last year. He came third, only losing out to Oscar Piastri, who, well, you know, it's Oscar Piastri. 2018 was also a respectable year for Logan Sargent. He raced in the FR Eurocup, where Lando's sidekick Max Futel won the championship. The grid was stacked. You had other drivers such as Christian Lundgaard and Victor Martins finishing in the top 5. Now on paper, 2019 should have been a fantastic year for Logan. He was racing with Carlin in Formula 3, alongside Drogovic and Nutori. However, things didn't go to plan. Drogovic finished in P16 with only 8 points, and Sargent down in P19 with 5. This can only make us question whether the junior categories are really up to par and really test junior drivers' skill level. Now 2020 was a different story. He partnered up with Prema in Formula 3, which should have really been the bread and butter for him to win the championship. But things don't really go to plan for Sargent. Sargent was dominant in qualifying over Oscar Piastri and Liam Lawson, who, you know, we can say are alright drivers. They've proven themselves. With 2 rounds remaining, he was leading the championship, and it was his. It was in sight. He basically already had one hand on the trophy. But as Logan Sargent's career in single-seaters have gone in the past, things haven't really gone to plan. Monza was the second to last race in F3, where in the sprint race, he wasn't really facing the right direction. Now, granted, it wasn't his fault, but yet again he caught the short end of the stick. But in the feature race, well, the blame was on him. He left no room for teammate Vesti, and that caused him to get a puncture.
We're not here to play pin the tail on the donkey.
But that meant he went a weekend without points. Now heading on to the final round in Mugello, Sargent scored points, but Oscar Piastri didn't. This made them level on points going into the final race of the season. Whoever scores more points wins.
Surely Logan can win his first championship since the glory karting days.
But as you probably expected, it didn't go well for Sargent. He was crashed out of the race, leaving him with no points to take home. Oscar Piastri went on to win the championship, barely, by 3 points. But it wasn't 3 points to Logan Sargent, it was 3 points to Théo Pourchaire, who came second in the standings. That was an insult to injury, as Sargent finished third in the FIA Formula 3. Now in 2021, Logan Sargent went to F2, as expected. But he didn't. He stayed in Formula 3 due to a lack of funds, Formula 2 costing around 3 million per season. He didn't have the funds. He moved over to Team Strauss, respectively a much worse team. But when he started to win races with them, he caught the eye of Williams, and he further competed in F2 in 2022. After earning his first couple wins in F2, he was now knocking on the door for Latifi's Williams seat. Abu Dhabi came round, and all Logan needed was P5 in the standings to obtain his Formula 1 seat in 2023. And it seems like for the first time, luck was on his side.
He finished 4th in the standings, and therefore had enough super license points to replace Latifi for 2023.
Now in 2023, I think we all expected Williams to drive like a boat and not finish in the points basically at all, like they've done for... Anyways, in 2022, they finished last with only 8 points. So the expectations weren't high. Bringing in a rookie with maybe potentially a higher pace ceiling than Latifi couldn't hurt the team, could it? With James Vowles taken over as team principal in 2023, he pushed the development of the car further than we expected. Williams finished P7 in the championship. But now this asks the question, is Logan Sargent the best driver for Williams at this stage in the team's life? Well, in 2021, Haas adopted 2 rookies to race for their team, hoping that they'd have a high pace ceiling. They didn't, and they were prone to crash, somewhat similar to Logan Sargent. That's why for 2023, Haas has a pretty experienced driver lineup, with Magnussen behind the wheel. For a car to be developed, there has to be some understanding about how it works. Albon's done a good job throughout the year, as he's been in the sport since 2019, excluding 2021. He's managed to extract pace from the car when it shouldn't, like in Zandvoort, where he finished 8th in a chaotic race, somewhere where the Williams really shouldn't have been at a track like that. Their straight line speed is meant to be their strength, and their downforce wasn't. Before the weekend, fans were expecting nothing more than P16, P15, and I'll put my hands up straight away. I thought the same, but instead, Albon managed to P8. And Logan Sargent, he's been prone to crash, maybe even costing development money. But why has Williams re-signed Logan Sargent? Is it because there's no other drivers on the market? Or have they just thrown that much money into his junior career that it's not worth letting him go? Logan Sargent's rookie career is somewhat comparable to Yuki Tsunoda. Both crash prone in a alright car. Yuki's highs might have been slightly higher than Logan, finishing P4 in Abu Dhabi. But Logan Sargent's pace hasn't been awful. In Bahrain, his qualifying was quite astonishing. But then track limits came. And there's been more instances where, fair play to him, he hasn't been that bad. Now comparing him to Oscar Piastri, who is another rookie, well, there's obviously a gap. A huge gap. But as with Yuki Tsunoda, it's taking him 3 years to develop into the driver he is now. And he's quite respected. So maybe Logan also needs that time to develop and learn the car. Maybe by 2025, if he still has the seat, maybe we can see his potential. The average quali gap between Logan and Alex was around 4.5 tenths, which, for a rookie, isn't that bad. He's missed out on Q2, Q3 due to some silly mistakes, but even if he was going to be replaced, there's no one really to replace him. There's Vesti, but yet again, he's another rookie, which will take time to develop. The first couple races won't be as consistent, somewhat like Logan's. Logan's already got a year on the bag. He can develop. He can go to Bahrain. He's been there once already in an F1 car and hit the ground running, hopefully. Toto Wolff was pushing for Mick Schumacher to get back in the car, but at the same time, he was also crash prone. He wasn't that consistent, and in the 2 years he spent in Haas, he only scored points twice. Agreeably, the point scoring finishes with Mick Schumacher were on merit, whereas Logan's in Texas it took 2 DNFs. Some would say he was lucky, but some would say it was a part of the plan. Maybe if he didn't score that singular point in Texas, maybe he wouldn't have re-signed. Williams is on an upwards trajectory, maybe even going to fight the Alpines next year, and potentially knock on the door of the Aston Martins. But to do this, they need to develop their car. They need to catch up with the midfield, maybe even higher than the midfield. They need a safe set of hands in the car. We have Alex Albon on one side, but Logan Sargent on the other. In 2024, will Logan hinder their performances, or will he increase them? With a year in Formula 1 behind his back, will he help the team develop? Looking at Logan Sargent's CV, all of the karting wins, and missed opportunities in single-seaters, this shouldn't really be a topic of whether he should be retaining his seat in Formula 1, but it's turned out to be that way. Listen, I wish the best for Logan. I support Williams and love Albon, So if they can gel together and help develop the car, move it forward past the Alpines, that would be phenomenal. Now, this isn't a video for being sympathetic for Logan. You have to look at the harsh reality of his season as well. His pace hasn't really been there in races, but we also saw quite a bit of silly mistakes creeping in, such as all of those track limits in qualifying, crashes like in Japan and Qatar, just to name a few. I think Logan's goal for 2024 is keeping it out the wall, staying consistent. He might not be as fast as Albon at the moment, or even knocking on Albon's door, but as long as he's consistent, not crashing, and scoring a point here and there, maybe every other race, even just 1 point, that would be an improvement, a big improvement. And I think that's what William needs, a safe pair of hands in the car. With all the data they can gather from a safe pair of hands will help their development drastically. Of course, there's pros and cons for Sargent to be in Formula 1. He's American, big promotion, although he's not that big in America. People don't really know him. I mean, Bottas and Ricciardo, they've got more fans in America than Logan does, and he's an American for God's sake. But I think the main reason why Logan managed to retain his seat was the fact that there's no real other drivers in the market at the moment. Maybe if Vesti won the F2 championship, there'd be a different story. Maybe Vesti would be in the seat. But they're just speculations. I'd appreciate hearing your guys' thoughts on this. Make sure to subscribe and smash the like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.